I'm Alex Weintz with the Oklahoma public affairs firm Amber Integrated, and I am really excited to have a special guest today, former Governor Mary Fallin. I want to give her a proper introduction here. Governor Fallin was a state representative, Oklahoma's first female lieutenant governor, and I believe first Republican lieutenant governor. Second female member of Congress representing the Oklahoma City metro area, and then elected to governor, where she was the first female governor. This is an honor and a treat. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Governor, and give us a little update about your life. Where are you? How are you? What have you been doing since leaving office?
Well, thank you, Alex, and I'm excited about your new company, Amber Integrated. Is that right?
You got it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, congratulations on that, your new team, and glad things are going well for you business-wise. And of course, you and I have worked together since my very beginning years, even before I got elected to Congress, when you were my communications director, and then on through almost all of my governor's term as my communications director. And so I know that all the different clients that you have will certainly enjoy your expertise, your wisdom, and your guidance through whatever issues you may be working on for them. So congratulations to you, and hope your two young children are doing well.
They're doing great. And I know I left this out of your introduction. You're a grandma now.
I am. That's my new job. In fact, I jokingly told people, I've told people since I left office, I've taken on a new job. I actually have a couple, but my greatest new job is being a grandmother. And it actually happened my last year in office, as we were preparing to leave, about a year and a half out of office. We had our children actually gave us 3 grandsons, and one is just a little over 2, one is 19 months, the other one's 18 months. So we got 3 grandsons. They're all about 2 years old. And as you can imagine, it makes it pretty crazy when they come over to, I'm called Mimi, and Wade's called Papa. And so it's fun to have all 3 of them over there. And then the other big news is Wade's middle son, Adam, and his wife, Elizabeth, are expecting our first granddaughter. So now we have 4 grandchildren, and things are changing tremendously. And you know, and I know other people may know that Wade and I, between the 2 of us, have 6 children. They're all grown and adults, and 4 of them are married out of the 6. So it's been a fun time in life to have our family growing. Since I left office, one of the first things we did was, first of all, just enjoy time together as husband and wife. And we took many nice trips. We did things trip-wise and travel-wise when I was governor, but certainly not alone as you would as husband and wife. We either had kids we were taking with us early on, or we had staff or security that we had to take with us during the other times. So we enjoyed just having time alone as husband and wife, moving into a different home that we had bought, and packing, as you can imagine, after being at the governor's home for 8 years. And just really took time to connect with friends and family, celebrate our new grandchildren, and just enjoy life and do those types of things. And I did some speeches, a little bit of out-of-state travel speech-wise, and we attend a lot of charity events and go to different dinners or lunches with friends, or even the former governors. We had a dinner with all the former governors except David Bourne wasn't able to make it, but it was fun to have Governor Walters, who was actually governor when I was a freshman legislator back in 1990, to Governor Nye, of course, who had a long distinguished career, and Governor Keating, Governor Henry, and of course Governor that's 4 of them. Yeah, that's right. And then myself, I'm the 5th one, and our spouses. So it's been fun over the years to be able to get together with the governors. And Wade and I actually started doing that when I was governor, and having the former governors to the home, the governor's mansion, for dinners. And so this was our 3rd time to get together as governors, but with me being out of office, which was fun. So we just had a fun year. I recently just took a board of directors position with a company that's based out of London called Iofina. That's a chemical plant that has 3 different divisions underneath it. And the investors and the stockbrokers firm and the public relations firm and some of the key management of the company that's on the London Stock Exchange is there. But we have a chemical plant in Kentucky. We have operations of disposal wastewater sites in Oklahoma, which we bring up the iodine out of the wastewater from oil and gas wells and mine the iodine, which is used to make pharmaceuticals, halogen lighting products. And of course, iodine is critical for salt and critical just even if you had, say, a nuclear disaster. Iodine is one of the key things that people have to take if there's some type of radiation. And it's used for many, many other things, but there's 3 different divisions under that company. And since they have their mining operations in Oklahoma with 5 different sites, I was fortunate enough for them to contact me and ask me if I would consider being on their board of directors. So that's something new I just started several months ago, and in talks with several other companies that have asked me to do different things, but I'm just kind of slowly but surely, after taking some time off and spending time with family and traveling, just now kind of getting to the point where I'll do some of that stuff. Meantime, I'm up in my office, which is up at my husband Wade Christensen's law firm, and I help him on some of his marketing activities. He has a workers' compensation law firm in which he helps companies and with claims by injured workers with workers' compensation. So doing some of that, just a little bit of everything, but enjoying life.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to take a breath, because I know how hard you worked while you were in office. So glad you can spend some time with kids and grandkids and family. That's wonderful.
One last thing I forgot, Alex, you probably remember this, but Wade and I bought a Honda Goldwing trike. And so we went to Sturgis last year to the big national motorcycle rally with 500,000 other motorcyclists. And this year, which I don't know if they're going to get to have it, but they're expecting about 1 million because it's a big 75th anniversary. But we've enjoyed, even recently, just this, Easter, we rode our motorcycle where that big cold wave hit right in the middle of the day. But we've been riding a little bit on our motorcycle just for fun.
I wonder if you're the first biker governor from Oklahoma. Something we should
maybe the first woman biker governor, but actually when I was national chair of the Governors Association back in, I remember my years, 2013, 2014, we actually had one of our meetings in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where Harley has their corporate headquarters. And back then, Governor Scott Walker was the host of the National Convention for the Governors. And since I was incoming chair, Governor Walker actually arranged with the CEO of Harley for any governor that wanted to, in a spouse, to be able to ride a Harley into the grand opening of the meeting. You might remember all this.
I certainly do.
And so I had a Harley trike. I rode by myself. And then Wade rode a Fat Boy Harley. And I think there were about 10 of us that rode. Not very many governors rode, and I was actually the only woman that would ride a motorcycle, but it was really fun to go in with, there were some National Guards and some other biker associations that stand for the soldiers and the military, do good things throughout the states and the community that rode with us. But we actually rode the Harleys into the National Governors meeting, and it was really cool to get off, and it was the beginning of the meeting and to launch it, right in front of all the participants of the convention. Just fun.
Which was more fun, the motorcycle or when you got to drive the tank?
Oh yeah, the tank. Yeah, you remember. Well, yeah, I got to drive a tank one time. It was, I'm trying to remember what the condition was, but it was on display here in Oklahoma.
It was a gun range that was opening.
It was a gun range. That's what it was. I think it was the Wilshire gun range, if I remember right. But we got to ride in a tank, and that was a lot of fun. It's a big piece of equipment.
Yeah, I bet. Well, if you don't mind, I'm gonna obviously the purpose of this show and these conversations is kind of to talk about the response to COVID-19, just to get different people's perspective. Obviously, I think everyone is interested in your perspective. because you're one of the few people who can empathize with what Governor Stitt is going through right now and the kind of decisions he's having to make. And I know you were lieutenant governor when the Murrah bombing happened. You were the governor when the more tornadoes hit, and so you're familiar with this kind of crisis response. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on kind of what Governor Stitt is experiencing, what it's like to be in charge when something like this happens, and if you had any lessons learned or observations from your own experience that you kind of want to share with this administration.
Well, it's certainly not easy to be a governor of any state, especially for the state of Oklahoma, when you have a pandemic, and one that our nation, at least in my lifetime, and I haven't done anybody that's lived through a pandemic yet that I know, they would have to face a crisis of this magnitude. And certainly, I tell people this, we're not the only country that's having to go through all the seriousness of a pandemic and trying to slow it down, stop it, cure people, keep them safe, keep the economy going, dealing with budget issues. But the whole world, there isn't a single person in the world, there isn't a single business in the world, there isn't a single culture in the world that is not being affected and hurt by the coronavirus and the pandemic that we've been experiencing, whether it's health-wise. Certainly it's horrible that we've had any loss of life in Oklahoma, in the United States, or even in the world. Very, very heartbreaking to hear some of the stories that we're hearing. But even the effect that it's having upon people's personal finances, their businesses. My husband has a business. He's like I said, he has a small law practice, and we're dealing with that too, because his business has slowed down tremendously, just like everybody else's business had, because people aren't working for the most part, except for the essential people. Non-essential people are closed. So it's been an interesting time even for us personally. But the big thing a governor has to do during a time of crisis, and I had my share. In fact, but the big thing they have to do is to communicate regularly, directly, with as much information as possible, accurate information certainly, communicating with every single entity that might be involved in addressing the pandemic or delivering a state service or keeping us safe directly to the people, and to give certainty as far as the budget goes and how we're going to be able to keep our government running and provide the essential services that are needed, such as being able to file an unemployment claim. We all know there are tens of thousands of Oklahomans that are unemployed right now, and millions that are unemployed in the United States. And for people to be able to put food on their table, pay their electricity bills, take care of their children, whoever it might be able to make their rent or their house payments, car payments, buy gasoline, whatever the issue might be, well, it's a scary time. So anything that a governor can do to add certainty for, we're going to get the budget figured out, straightened out, whether it's locally on the city level. There's been lots of stories recently about the cities of Oklahoma City run on sales tax. There's been debates in the past for decades about whether you should use a portion of the property tax and sales tax to run the cities, but we're, as an article I read, I think the only state in the nation that relies 100% on city sales taxes to keep our cities operating, which will really affect our cities, whether you're large or small, whether it comes to funding your police, your fire, your sewer, your water, your trash collections, whatever it might be. That's going to be a big challenge for our state and our cities and our citizens to be able to deal with and to find a new way forward. So certainly a governor has to stand up and lead, work with all the different parties he can, or she can, in my sense, and to be able to show the people that they're really taking charge of the issue. I think having regular press conferences, and during the crisis we went through, and I started saying a minute ago, there was a national article that came out many years ago. It was back, I think, around 2013, and we'd gone through the more tornadoes. We'd gone through huge grass fires, which we had to have hay brought in for our cows because our farmers and their cattle were starving.
Right.
Because we had ice storms with power down for several days. In fact, I remember the day I was inaugurated first time as governor in 2011. There was actually an ice storm. We had to decide, and I wasn't even in office yet. I was 4 hours away from being elected or being sworn in as governor, whether to have my inauguration on the Capitol steps because there was sleet and freezing rain and it was freezing outside, and we were worried about people driving to the Capitol to see an inauguration. I mean, just all the things you have to deal with, power being out, well, and even earthquakes to that sense. We'd never experienced earthquakes until we started changing the way we were doing fracking in the state of Oklahoma and some of the different areas that we shouldn't have been fracking that deep into the bedrock in certain areas of our state into the pressure it was. So governors face all kinds of crises, but I remember there was an article written one time years ago on a national publication. Oklahoma had more natural disaster declarations than any state in the nation. And they said their headline was something like Oklahoma, the governor that deals with the most disasters in the nation. It was me.
Right.
Because at that time we were just going through a crazy time. And all governors will deal with this type of an issue at some point in time in their life. All governors have to make decisions with information that they have. I had to make decisions with information I had that the public may not know, the insight I may have about an entity where their computer systems are strong enough, such as, I'll give you an example, the unemployment services right now, they haven't been capable of handling, usually 1,500 applications for unemployment to 50, 60,000 all of a sudden. So they've crashed a lot. They've had their phone lines backed up. But those are just things, inside the ballpark that have to be worked on while you're dealing with everything else with a crisis. So the governor just has to take the best information they have, bring the very best people around, use all the different experts, and hopefully has appointed good people, have experience and expertise. Listen to those people, listen to the public. That's critically important too, because a governor doesn't know it all. It's important to hear from other people, especially the citizens and the public and the businesses, and certainly the other entities in state government or even federal government. You have to listen to the president and the other federal entities that you deal with.
Sure.
FEMA was always critically important to work with. We had a great relationship with FEMA. And as you'll remember, we had the longest serving emergency management director, Albert Ashwood, who had been through the Oklahoma City bombing. I was in office when the Oklahoma City bombing happened too. So I dealt with that back in 1995 from a long time ago. So disasters were no stranger even to me. But Albert Ashwood certainly having a great personal working relationship with your emergency management director for any governors, very important in their team. I spent a lot of time in the emergency command centers. Anytime we had whatever the crisis was, I would go down there just to see the employees and all the different, you might have the Highway Patrol, the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the health department, the mental health department, corrections, whatever entity might be involved in that particular crisis, tornado, flood, grass fire, whatever it is, to personally talk to the people with the boots on the ground and to coordinate all the different services and to make sure that we're thinking about every possible scenario there might be.
And for people who don't know, there's essentially like an underground bunker under the Capitol, which serves as basically a war room for all these different agencies to be in one secure location and coordinate a response for something like a tornado or a natural disaster.
I still remember the first time, well, it was the first time for a real big disaster. I went down there. I knew where it was, but it was when I was lieutenant governor. But I'd only been on the job from January 10th till April 19th when the bomb happened. Oklahoma City Federal Building got bombed.
Right.
But right after it occurred, 9:01 in the morning, Governor Keating and myself were taken from the Capitol to that bunker and were there pretty much within 30 minutes after the bomb hit the federal building and stayed there in the command center. And of course, we were just trying to figure out what in the world happened. Was it an I mean, some news reporters were saying maybe it's an air conditioning unit on top of the building, you know, until they could finally get downtown and see what happened. But I can still remember being there in that bunker. And I can remember President Clinton calling Governor Keating. I remember congressional delegation was trying to fly back in from DC. Of course, the flights and stuff were pretty messed up, as you can imagine. Airspace was canceled out, but trying to get the congressional members with us, but being in that bunker for that first big terrorism act that shocked the nation, that just happened to be in the homeland, the heartland of the United States in Oklahoma. So there's a lot of things you have to do with it. I will tell you this, that probably some people may not know, but, and I'm sure Governor Stitt does this too, but we had throughout my term, and I know you would have been there, we had tabletop exercises with all the members of the cabinet because they all covered different entities. And the members of the cabinet would talk about whether it was healthcare, disease control, maybe it was Ebola. We had N1H1, you know, viruses. It could have been dealing with possibility of another terrorist attack. It could have been the illegal immigrants that were crossing the border. Remember back coming across the trains into the United States, and they shipped some down at Fort Sill to be housed down there. I mean, they did it throughout the whole nation, but they're dealing with those types of critical issues. But we'd have tabletop exercises and go through any scenario we could think of and divide into different groups. And we present to the group, here's how we will handle that. The health department, here's how we'll handle security within the state with the highway patrol. Here's how the National Guard will bring out all their emergency services. Here's how FEMA and emergency management services will be able to declare different things from natural disasters to, say, bring heavy trucks in, say with telephone poles, if electricity goes down or a tornado destroys telephone poles, how do you get the phone service back up and bring in cell towers with AT&T? I mean, those are all things we had to do at different times during the administration, but having those tabletop exercises and planning is key to handling a crisis.
Yeah, there's a lot of preparation that I think people don't see or know about that state agencies do to prepare for disasters like this. So that's a good point. I think one of the toughest things that the governors are being asked to do now is to choose a date on when to reopen their economies and to make this decision that's really balancing life on one hand and the desire to protect people and make sure people don't get sick with very real economic concerns that eventually, if our economy is hurt deeply enough and for long enough, that will kill people too. So
absolutely.
How do you make that kind of decision as a government?
Well, first and foremost, you always want to protect life. And this is a situation that our nation has not faced since when they had, I think it was 1915, 17, around that period of time we went through a big pandemic in the nation. But in Oklahoma, this is certainly one that we've never experienced in our lifetime. I've never have, at least, haven't known anyone that's ever experienced something of an illness like this that swept through our whole nation and our whole world. It's very, very serious, and we don't want to lose any lives. But I think it's hard to be able to judge when's the right time. You have to have a lot of things in place, and certainly there's a big discussion going on this week, as there has been for months. How do you get to the point that you feel safe enough to go to a business, to go to a restaurant, to go to work, to feel like you're not going to get this illness and pass it on to other people? And I think you have to look at all the data. You have to keep everybody at the table. with that information, it has to be up to speed, not just once a week, but up to speed type data. And you have to look at what's critical, what's not critical. I mean, the governor in his orders said that all essential people should be able to go to work. The gas stations have to be able to provide gas, the ONG, the telephone services, certainly the pharmacies, the grocery stores. You have to have businesses open, essential for life. And that's certainly been very challenging. How do you protect the employees and keep them safe,
Right.
but yet also have the available services? People have to eat. And that's
Right.
why you saw a run on things like toilet paper. And now there's a run on hair dye for women that hadn't been able to get their hair done in 5 or 6 weeks, including
Never
myself.
thought of that. I'm sure it's true, though.
Looks like you hadn't had a haircut, by the way, in a while.
It's been a while.
I might have to give my husband a haircut too, but I do have clippers, so that's good. But anyway, how do you balance protecting your citizens, keep government running, but yet not destroy your economy? And as a governor that went through, well, and you'll remember this, I went through 2 different economic downturns. When I actually took office in January of 2011, we were just coming out the 2009 recession nationally that the nation had gone through with the big bailout of the banks and General Motors and the housing market collapse, the bad loans that we had in our nation. All kinds of issues are happening in 2008, 2009, and it was tough on our nation. But by 2011, Oklahoma actually had a 6.9% unemployment rate in January, and we literally had $2.03 in the rainy day savings account. We had no money, and we still had a $500 million shortfall the day I walked in to office in our state budget, which was very, very difficult. And so those first many years, and you were there, we had to figure out how do we provide essential services to protect and keep people safe, and how do we also cut spending, which we did have to do some targeted, and I believe in targeted cuts, because there are things that are a little bit more essential than others. There's, protecting health and safety is very essential.
Sure.
And those type of things. Those are very tough decisions that we had to make. Fortunately, by the end of 2013 to 2014, the economy had gotten much better. We had around 3.2%, 3.3% unemployment. We had close to $500,000 in savings by about 2014. And I'll be darned if by the end of 2014, 2015, we went through another oil bust, which we're going through right now, besides COVID, which is a triple whammy. You got a budget shortfall, you got oil and gas industry is suffering, and then you have a pandemic health crisis with the government being shut down, or not the government, all the government, but some of the government being shut down, but majority of the businesses being shut down, and a lot of people having to file for unemployment. So we went through the energy downturn and budget shortfalls for 3 solid years at the Capitol. And there was one year we had a $1.2 billion shortfall out of a $7 billion budget. And that was huge. And it wasn't just that year, it was 3 years in a row. And so we had to make very tough decisions. We consolidated, in fact, early on in my term, agencies, services, trying to make things more efficient, more effective, and operate smarter. But that's a time when you have to do those type of things. And so, but there also comes now with an urgency that the longer people don't have money because they have no income coming in, or the higher the unemployment rate goes up and the more money we're having to send out for unemployment claims, which also affects the state budget. Or for example, the small business loans right now that a lot of businesses have the opportunity to apply for and get the 2 months relief from. Now that money's ran out and it's not available for those who just didn't get it in during that last week. Now you've complicated the economy itself. A lot of people being out of work. I have a lot of friends that have restaurants, other businesses, nail salons, hair salons, whatever it might be. And when you have no income, but your rent's still due, your utilities are still due, you're still paying health insurance for your furloughed employees, You got photocopiers, phone bills. I mean, you got expenses. It doesn't turn off just because your business may be off. Now those people are getting in financial trouble. It is scary. Or people getting behind on their house payments. Or how they gonna make their house payments or car payments. You know, it's scary. So there has to come a time where you have to balance between, yeah, we want to make sure people don't get sick from COVID and spread it around any more than what it already has been. But yet, if people can't eat, if people can't make their rent or house payments or buy gas for their car or buy their pharmacies or prescription drugs from the pharmacy, then they face other health issues.
Sure.
Or, you know, I've had some friends that have told me, I know someone that's been having some heart problems, but they can't get in to get it checked out because non-elective surgeries or elective surgeries are not being done right now.
People waiting to get their cancer treatment.
So that's a big concern to me right now. I think we've got, with the information we've had, and it's been a moving target, as Dr. Fauci will tell you. We think we have it all figured out, and then it changes. You know, we just get new information every day, and it's been that way throughout the whole world. But you do the best with the information that you have. But there does come a time and a point to where if you don't get people back to work, you're going to lose businesses that will never come back, or jobs that will never come back because they're so far in the hole you just can't dig out. So that's a big concern. Is also the safety from a standpoint of being able to take care of yourself, and even public unrest. You're seeing in some countries, even in our state and some other states, you know, demonstrations, and so you have to take that into account.
Sure. And the money we are losing now will eventually make its way, that lost money, to our healthcare system, to mental health treatment, to education, and to all these things which, you know, we all acknowledge save lives. So there's certainly no easy answer. Okay, so if you're watching this right now, we are working through a choppy internet connection. Governor Fallin has been very game and trying to fix this, and has moved to the other side of our office, so we can also get a nice view of Wade Christensen working hard in the background. Hi, Wade. Sorry to.
It's called the judge.
Yeah.
Not leave.
Well, we'll try to wrap it up so we don't mess up your conference call. But Governor, what I wanted to ask is kind of shifting topics to a more political perspective now. If for those who don't know, Governor Fallin has a 20-plus year career in politics, has never lost an election. So I am very interested in her political advice because there is, frankly, no one in the state who's been more politically successful than you, Governor. But if you're a candidate right now running for office in November, how do you talk about COVID-19? Are you critical of the state's response? Are you praising the governor or the president? Sort of, how does this work when people ask you as a candidate about COVID-19 response?
Well, I will say that compared to the first time I ran for office, which would have been 30 years ago, which seems like forever, and I've served 28 years, but back in those days, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all the different things, Instagram, all the different things you can use to campaign. So I think people right now have, even though it's difficult, you can't go out and directly talk to people, you have a huge variety of ways to be able to talk to them through all kinds of media sources, which I wouldn't have had back in my early days. So I think people can still talk about COVID, try to give people information that's up to date, that's pertinent. And I personally think, now, even as a former elected official, I just want to hear the facts. I just want to know how to protect my family, how the economy is going to get back going, what's going on, what are the dangers out there that we should watch for, how can we protect ourselves, and just get that kind of information. But I certainly think all the candidates, and I don't envy them for having to run right now, but they can use all kinds of social media, multimedia, to be able to talk to their constituents about what's happening either in the state of Oklahoma with the budget, with services. How do you get your services? I actually still have people that call me saying, I can't get my unemployment check, or I want face masks, or I want to get tested, or someone called me today and said, I want the antibody test. I just want to know if I've had COVID, where can I go find it? So being able to use the media platforms out there, since you can't go out in public, and share that information that people want to know. And not only that, but once we get through COVID and we get closer to the election day, I mean, people want to know what you're going to do. What are you going to do with the budget, the economy, with building back business, with rules, regulations? And you and I were talking not too long ago. I think it's a great time for some of the lessons learned during this crisis to think about all the different ways we've learned to be innovative. I mean, I never Zoomed before all this happened, but now I think everybody's Zooming and having meetings, having just even friends get together on Friday night on Zoom to be able to social distance, but be able to spend time with other people, which is healthy for our mental health, and to be able to do business or interviews like I am with you. So I think for the candidates to be able to not only talk about the pertinent issues today, but where do we go from here? How do we work from here? And what are the issues you will be focusing on to try to get the nation back to where it needs to be? It'll be different. It's not going to be the same, but to certainly help bring strength back to our families and to our economy and our jobs. And I think we've learned a tremendous amount of lessons about health and about telemedicine and working from home, and just, I mean, there's a lot of great lessons learned that will come out of this whole experience.
Yeah, and you know, we talk a lot about, are some of the changes that we're seeing going to be permanent? Are people now going to be much more used to buying their groceries online, for instance, and having them delivered, or you know, communicating like this instead of in person? So it's a brave new world for sure, and there'll be opportunities and hazards.
Yeah, we'll be doing things a lot different, and it'll never be exactly the way it was. But you know what? I'm just grateful. My family's healthy. We're making it. We're certainly making the changes that we need to. And yeah, budgets are a little bit tighter than what they used to be, but I'm just grateful for the family and friends, and that we live in a safe nation and don't have any immediate worries internationally as far as terrorism or anything like that right now. So
sure.
I think everybody's celebrate what they have.
Yeah. Well, Governor, I don't want to take up too much more of your time or bug Wade more than we have to.
See, we're social distancing. I'm 10 feet away from him, but he's got, as I mentioned earlier, he's got a small business and 6-7 people up here in their individual offices, and they all wipe everything down. But they are, they're essential services in a legal practice, but they are managing to keep the employees employed and do what we can to make sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, that's great. What before I let you go, is there anything else, any message you have for people who are watching this, or anything I didn't ask you want to?
Well, I think one of the biggest messages in going through, as we talked about earlier, a lot of crisis in our state, whether it was the two awful, and we actually had many more tornadoes, but the really big ones that hit early on in my term, to some of the devastating grass fires that we had. And I remember we had some big flooding early on. I don't remember exactly what year it was, maybe 2012, somewhere, 2013, somewhere around there. But even the cattle, couldn't get hay, and we had to bring in truckloads of hay to feed our farmer, help our farmers and ranchers be able to feed their livestock. I think the lessons learned is, we know as a people, when we pull together, we're much stronger. We know that Oklahomans are very generous. And we saw, as we get ready to remember April 19th in the Oklahoma City Federal building that was bombed, the Murrah building, remember the lives and the lessons learned from that, and certainly not forget those that were lost. That we have a great Oklahoma standard of people that, when they come together, can just mount unsurmountable challenges. And as we saw with the Moore tornadoes, which was devastating, when we had the school children that we lost, and the grade school that was hit, and many, many, many other individuals who lost their lives. and the devastation that came to a community that lost so many businesses and schools. The Oklahoma Strong, that was our saying back then, the Oklahoma Strong spirit, that we can get through this. We will get through it. May look a little bit different, but we know that we have the strength and the character and the grit to make it through as Oklahomans. And I'm confident we will.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that message, and thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I think people are going to be excited to hear from you and see that you're doing so well. So appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Good luck to you. And stay safe.
All right.
Wash your hands. Social distance.
Good advice. Thanks, Governor.